minute.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining me on Facebook Live. This is the first time that I've done this. I'm here to take any questions that you may have about Paul or any other thing you want to ask. I'm joined by my good friend Kim Shaw, who's a former WPBA professional player. And yeah, let's just start. Let's get into this. I'm looking forward to it, and please fire away if you've got anything to ask. Kim, do you?
Well, at the moment, I'm having difficulty finding you on Facebook.
Oh gosh,
So,
I hope you can find me.
I hope we're live. I don't know.
We are, I think.
Okay.
I have a question actually from a Kelly Talbot. She asks, how old were you when you started playing, and did you know that this was your passion? Well, I started playing at the age of 7, and the reason I started playing at the age of 7 was because my dad was watching it on television, and I sat next to him and I asked him how the game of snooker was played, and I liked the look of it, and I asked for a small table for Christmas, which was my first mistake because I got the smallest table possible, which was about 1.5 foot long. I used to challenge everyone that used to come to the house. I loved it. And from then, at the age of 11 years old, I started playing on a 6 by 3 foot table. And then one day I went down to the local pub with my parents, and I fell in love with the game because I saw a 12 by 6 foot table and I couldn't take my eyes off of it. So I remember being in bed at night, I was crying, and my mum came in and said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "I really want to get on that table." So then my mum left and went and asked my dad to ask the owner if I could play on there, and that's what happened. That was my initial start into snooker. Then I started playing league play, and then so on and so forth. And then Kelly asked, how did you know this was your passion? At 14 years old, my careers education teacher said, "What do you want to do when you leave school?" And I automatically said, "I want to be a professional snooker player," which was very, very rare at that time because I don't think there were any women making a living at the game. So I think at that point, I absolutely knew that that was what I wanted to do, and that's what I was destined to do. So thanks for that question, Kelly.
I've got a question from somebody. How do you remain calm at the table? Or
how do you remain calm?
Are you faking it?
Calm? I think I'm faking it. Oh no, did I say that out loud? Well, the thing is, I think there's not one person in the world that doesn't get nervous when they play. I've talked to everyone, I've watched everyone, I've played most of the players, and to give you an example, Darren Appleton, when he was running out that last rack to win $100,000 against one of the best snooker players in the world, Mark Selby at the time, he was shaking like a leaf, and he said that quite happily afterwards. Really, in order to try and control yourself, you need to really have good fundamentals and good mechanics at the table. And what that does is that keeps your head in the game and you become very present. So I don't really get annoyed by a movement or cameras around. And that's purely because I'm very present trying to do my job, which I've focused very much on good fundamentals and mechanics at the table. So that helps because after a while you start to relax and then you can play your game.
I've got another question.
Another question?
Yeah. What is the best piece of advice somebody has given you?
Well, when I first started playing, the best piece of advice I got was to basically keep my head still. I think I took it in so much that I literally could barely move the cue. And I had a big mark on my chin. So I think that's really one of the best pieces of advice, because when you get down on a shot, you've got to take a little picture of that shot in your mind. It's like a mental picture. And it's all about repetition, this game. So the clearer you see that and the more you stay down, you can see what the Q-tip's doing, what the ball is doing, and that's how you learn how to adjust.
I know when I was playing them, would have somebody put a cue on my head. Is that what somebody did with you?
Yeah, I mean, you see people when you're teaching them, you hold a cue over their head and you whack them one if they lift up, or their head hits the cue. So yeah, you've obviously had a taskmaster when you were learning, Kim.
I've got a question from Mary Kofi.
Okay, Mary, how you doing?
What is the shot you had most difficulty learning?
Well, I think, God, that's a good question. I think most people have difficulty with a draw shot when they're first learning, because they always try to overdo it, or they try to stab the ball, punch the ball. And the key to a good draw shot is in really good follow through. So when you actually come through the ball, I always like to say that anytime you hit a shot, your backswing should at least mirror image. Your forward swing should mirror image your backswing. So if you come back 4 inches, try and get through the ball 4 inches, as an example. And you'll start to learn that the more follow through you have on a draw shot, and of course, where you put that tip on the ball will create a better draw shot. And again, keep your head still. Try and keep everything as still as possible.
And I've got a little follow up on the best piece of advice you were given. Is that the advice you would give somebody else?
Absolutely.
Keep your head still.
I would absolutely give the keep your head still and stay down on the shot, but also just really work on really good fundamentals and mechanics all the way. It starts with the stance and goes everywhere. So, oh, I see somebody. Was that Jason Pegram? I just saw. It's flipping so quickly here.
Well, I know that Care Morelli Care Morelli is going to have somebody put a cube over her head.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, phone a friend. Get them to come and help you.
Perfect. There's a lot of people saying hi. Can you see that?
Yes, thank you everyone for tuning in. We really appreciate it. So please ask away.
I've got another question from somebody. Do you have a special diet at tournaments?
One thing I do is to not overeat. I think that's really important, because I've found out the hard way, which you do. You know, you learn by experience, where if you eat too much before you play a match, all your blood is in your stomach and not in your head, and you can't think straight. So I think the really important thing is to, maybe for me, at least an hour and a half to 2 hours before I play, I try not to eat. And if I do, it's very light snacks. So yeah, don't overeat.
Did you see the question from George Sheik?
Yes.
Why is snooker not better established in the USA?
Well, that's a really good question. Why isn't snooker better established? Many years ago, I played in a challenge match with Ava Lawrence and Steve Miserak and Stephen Hendry. And this was before I even started playing pool. And they came over to England, and it was a snooker pool challenge. And Steve Miserak said in his own words that this would never take off in America because they like fast and loud sports. So that was something that he said out of his mouth. So I guess there's a lot of competition sports-wise over here, and the mentality is a little bit different. Snooker seems to have really taken off in Asia and really taken off in other parts of Europe and some other parts of the world. So just a lot of it depends on what you grow up watching, I think.
I have a very important question from Ronnie Park. Is that Kim with you?
Ronnie Park, very important question. Yes, it is Kim.
Yeah.
Be nice.
I've got a few
Be
highs.
nice there.
I've got a few highs as well.
Yeah.
Okay, another one about tournaments or practice, actually. Do you listen to music when you practice?
Sometimes and sometimes not, because when you're in an arena, in a tournament arena, especially on television, there's no music in the background. And when I was growing up playing snooker, there was not a noise. You know, anyone would feel embarrassed to cough if they were watching the game. Over here, playing in WPBA events and some other events, they do tend to play music through the first part of the tournament, and then when it gets to TV or live stream, then the music goes off. So you have to be comfortable in both environments. If I am listening to music, I like pop music, but I also I can like classical too. I don't want too many things going on while I'm playing. I want to be able to think as well while I'm shooting. Definitely don't like rap, definitely don't like heavy rock. So I just like things that relax me.
Ra Hannah.
Yeah. Hi, Ra.
Ra.
How you doing?
That he or she, I'm not sure, forgive me, wants to know, okay, where he can purchase your line of cues.
Well, thank you for asking that. I've just come out with a line of cues, Allison Fisher cues, which I'm really proud of. And I did want to actually show you the one that I'm playing with currently, but you can go to my website, AllisonFisher.com or AllisonFisherCues.com, and we will do a link to Facebook and be doing advertising that more. And the reason that I came out with a line was because I actually wanted to do custom-made cues. It's a signature line, but you can order it to any length, starting at probably about 54 inches up to 60, 62 inches, whatever you want. And that can be in the shaft or the butt of the cue. So I see many players holding the cue in the wrong place with maybe too much out the backhand, or their hand is all the way back on the cue because they're tall. So I decided, and I've been wanting to do it for many, many years, and I've teamed up with Joe Peachower, who's a great custom cue maker, and we basically crossed paths, we hit it off, and I'm really delighted that Joe's making my cues. We've designed them together, and I think that we've done a great job in designing something for everyone that would be very appealing, and covers, you know, all ranges in price-wise, so it just depends really what you're looking for. So please check them out at AllisonFisher.com or AllisonFisherCues.com.
I've got a question about from VR Nicastro. What are the chances of you and Karen Cole playing an exhibition snooker match at the Expo next year? Probably zero.
Probably zero, because there are never any snooker tables. Plus, not to mention that I haven't played snooker in over 20 years. I actually left England in 1995 to come over and play professional pool. So I think a snooker table would look like a football pitch. However, I must say that I absolutely love watching snooker. I still follow it. I love watching the World Championships, and recently Mark Williams won the world title, which was fantastic. Yeah, so it's lovely to watch. I love the game. I think it's a superbly skillful game, and it's nice to see the faces that I knew growing up really doing well now.
I have a question.
Kim Shaw has a question.
Who was the person who beat you last at snooker? Well, should we pass on that one?
We should pass on that. Actually, I probably should mention it. I came over to America to escape Kim Shaw because she was the last person that beat me at snooker. She ruined my snooker career, so I thought I'd come over here and play pool, and then she followed me over here. So there are just some people you just can't get rid of.
You can't get rid of me.
Yeah.
Right, okay, but it's over to you. Back to you now.
Still friends.
Do you have a coach?
No, I don't have a coach. When I first came over here, well, let's talk about my snooker career. My snooker career, I had a coach when I was a little kid called Frank Sandell. He spotted me at a children's club in Worthing. Hi, Frank, if you're watching. And he was with Jim Meadowcroft, who was a professional player at the time. And they took me aside, and at the time they thought I was a boy from behind, the way I was cueing, and then they realised I was a girl, which was very unusual and kind of special at the time. So I worked with them, and they got me my first decent snooker cue, which was a Horace Lindrum snooker cue. And then when I came, and then I went to Frank Callan at the age of 16. He was at a tournament, and he approached my parents and said, I'd really like to teach your daughter, if you'd be willing to send her up to me in Blackpool, and which was what I did. I went up to Blackpool, and he taught me a lot in a weekend, and that's where I started to put the hesitation in my stroke. So I really focused on that for a few months of hard work and pain and blood, sweat and tears, and then by the time the World Championships came round, I really felt like I couldn't miss, and I won my first world title when I was 17 years old. So Frank was really to thank for that, and the consistency in my game. Then coming over to the US in 1995, I did an exhibition tour. A guy came into a club one day, Mother's Billiard Parlour in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where I live now. And he walked up to me and introduced himself, and his name was Grady Matthews, for all those Grady fans out there. And he said, I'd like to do an exhibition tour. I will arrange everything, and we'll try and play. I think it was, we ended up doing 21 exhibitions, Battle of the Sexes, and we had a lot of fun. And I have to say that I learned so much from Grady. So he would have been somebody who taught me a lot on the pool table. And other than that, it's really been relying on my snooker fundamentals, and just some, you know, there's lots of information out there online too that you can find. And one thing that I've been teaching for over 20 years now, but one thing I do want to do is come out with some teaching instruction, which we'll probably do on YouTube at some point, and I'm looking forward to that. So please stay tuned for those little videos. Dan Warner wants to know, how long do you think you'll keep competing? Oh, well, I'm no spring chicken anymore, and I've had a very high and long competitive career. So I think I'm kind of winding down a bit. I think my international play is certainly winding down a little bit. Um, but I still want to keep my arm in domestically. But you never know with me, because if I really feel like practicing and putting in the work to compete in big events, then I'll do it, I think. But at this point, I'm looking at diversifying a little bit with the queue line, the teaching. So, there's just other things in life. I have an 8-year-old boy called Pearson, my son. So there's just things that I want to spend more time doing, and family life is very important to me. Hi, Felice.
Suzanne Salette is hi Alison. How do you stay so composed in the toughest tournaments?
Sometimes I have been, and sometimes I haven't been, quite frankly. It's not always easy. There are times in life when you go through, some personal battles inwardly, emotional stuff. And I think when I was younger, I was very much able to separate some things a lot easier. Here's my business, here's, what's going on in my personal life. And then as you get older, more of life happens, and then sometimes it's not as easy. And, some examples of that might have been maybe, the year that my father passed away. And at that point, when he was in that phase of he wasn't going to be around much longer, and I won a tournament, and I remember just the emotion that I felt in that last frame when I broke the balls and everything landed perfectly for a run out. I actually felt like a lot of emotion come up inside of me, and at that time you have to really push it back down. So there's times when it's not easy, and you just you're going through stuff in your life, and you have to just really rely on what you've learned and think about, this is what I've worked for, this is what I enjoy doing, this is my passion, and take yourself to happy places. And then, if you get the job done, that's great. And I couldn't wait to get off the phone and call my dad after that.
Renee Almond wants to know, who is your most difficult opponent?
There's obviously many difficult opponents out there. One I beat recently was Chen Ximing from China. I was really happy to get over the winning line with her, because I hadn't beaten her in competition. We'd only played on a few occasions, but I rate her extremely highly. I'm very impressed with her. Great cue action, great temperament, and a good person. Karen Kaur, without a doubt, is one of the greatest players that I play against, just because we're so similar in our style. So I think that makes it difficult. People I love to play are the shot makers, the Vivians and the Ga-Young Kim. I love Ga-Young Kim's game, Kelly Fisher. There's so many out there, but they're the people I really enjoy playing.
Follow on from that, what's your most memorable match?
There's a few. One would be, I think, the 1996 Nationals, 1995, the year that I came over to the US. And I was in the final against Laurie John Jones. And I think what was memorable was it was a massive win for me, biggest that I'd ever done. And my father flew over from England to see it, and that was the first time that he saw me play pool. So I think that was a very special memory and moment for me, winning that, and him coming over and hugging me at the end of it. So that was one. And then the run out, I think the last rack I played against Kelly Fisher in the US Open quite a few years back, that was amazing, because we went hill. Kelly made a mistake. It was unfortunate. She scratched off the 8 ball. I remember it. I knew there was a chance it could happen, and it did happen. Then we went to the final game, and I remember, I think I pushed out and she let me take the shot, I remember, or she may have taken it. But anyway, I'm running out and I hooked myself. It was very poor judgment on my part. So then I'm like, don't panic. And then I ended up kicking out of the shot, made the shot, and then came a very difficult shot straight in down the rail on the 6 ball length of the table. And I think under pressure, that was one of the greatest shots that I played to win a match, because it was dead straight. It was against a rail. I was jacked up with the butt of the cue in the air on TV. And I think what made it really special and pressurized for me was it was a three-peat of the US Open, my second three-peat. but also my 50th WPBA Classic Tour title. So there was a lot riding on it for me.
Kimberly Rickroad would like to know if you'll be back at Soaring Eagles next year.
I believe we are. It's one of our favourite venues, and I believe they're having us back. I love it there, and the people love it, and I look forward to coming back. So I would say that's a definite. Hi, Katrina. It was nice spending the weekend with you, Memorial Day.
Oh.
Thanks for joining.
Another question. Where did you get your nickname?
Where did I get the nickname of Duchess of Doom? That's a very good one. When I first came over, I was called a few things, but the Duchess of Doom came from Steve Tipton, who used to be the MC on the WPBA Classic Tour. And he created it one day. He said, we want maybe a bit of the British royalty mixed in with what you inflict on your opponents at the table. And that was when the name was born. And part of it was because Laurie John Jones at the time, Laurie John Hassan now, had taken the Queen and the Princess. I think she was Queen of the Hill and Princess of Paul. So she greedily took 2 high titles, and I was left with the Duchess. But I'm not complaining, seeing as we have a new Duchess and Duke of Sussex now, which is where I'm from in England.
A couple of people have asked, will you be in Vegas? I think in August or July.
Yeah, no plans to be in Vegas at the moment. So hopefully at some point I will be back out there, especially with the new queue line. For those of you who are just tuning in, please check out AllisonFisher.com and AllisonFisherQs.com.
Okay, I'm going through the questions. Can't see them all at the moment.
I've got one from Lou here, and it goes, how do you get through a match when you're competing against people you like or people that are going through difficult struggles? Now that's a pretty difficult one. I have good friends on tour, not many, but I do have some good friends on tour, and when you get to the table, you're there to win. So, you know, you put friendships aside and you do your job, basically. That's what you're there for, and that's what you're trained to do. So you can disassociate. I can disassociate from that, and we're all good friends before the tournament and after the tournament, and what you do in the middle is doing your job. So as much as it can be difficult sometimes, everyone knows that that's what you do. And people who are going through difficult struggles, everyone's going to have difficult struggles in their life. There's not one person that's going to avoid that. And, you know, I think we're all compassionate and you can empathise with people. But anyone who's going through struggles wouldn't want you to take it easy on them, to feel sorry for them. And that's the way I would feel. And I think how people would want to be treated.
Got a question from Troy T. Obi. I don't know if that's OBQs.
Not sure. Hello, Troy.
What do champions have that separates you from all the other great players?
Well, what's interesting in sports is that in tennis, in anything, that you're going to get certain people, certain players that reach the final stages. Usually the top 4 are always a top 4 for a period of time, or the top 8 are the top 8. And then some people don't get beyond that. And then you get some who will win and keep winning. And I just think a lot of it is the self-belief, the absolute focus under pressure, and more importantly than anything is the willpower. I think the will in a top player is just a little bit more than some of the other players. It's really the hating losing and almost not accepting it. You're going to do it, but I think the willpower determination is a really big one there.
Slightly off the subject, but Aaron Purdy would like to know if you ever had long hair.
Well, it's funny that, because I didn't think I did, but then I've looked back in pictures and I've seen that I've had long, you know, sort of maybe down to here. I've never had long hair because it doesn't suit me, in my opinion. But I look back in pictures and think, oh, I actually did have longer hair than I ever thought. So sort of yes and no, really.
Who are or were your idols, your heroes
Growing
in
up,
snooker and pool?
My heroes, my hero really was Steve Davis, because he was a dominant player in the 80s when I was growing up. He was the one that I watched, and he really just literally won every tournament. I think he ended up winning 7 world titles. So I think he was a guy that I followed and emulated. I emulated his game, and I liked his sportsmanship, everything about him at the table. And then came along Stephen Hendry, who was fantastic. So many great snooker players. And then Ronnie O'Sullivan, of course. And I knew Ronnie as a 14-year-old. I met him actually probably as a 12-year-old. And what a talented guy, one of the best of all time. So, you know, I've grown up through the decades with some of the best players of all time.
Question from Heather Platter. What's your pre-shot routine, and do you ever change it if you're not playing well?
Pre-shot routine, I don't really change it. I don't try not to veer. The thing that you need to do, I think one thing that you really need to do at a table is commitment, is to decide what shot you're going to play, because sometimes you get to a table and there are like a few different, I usually see a few different options. So then I'm looking at the percentages, and then I'm looking at, okay, right, make that commitment to what you're going to do. So that's really important. And then there's the physical. So one thing is seeing the shot, visualizing it, then committing to it. And then the next thing is getting down, stance, you know, rhythm, staying down, keeping the head still, follow through. There's lots of little things. The better you get, the quicker that happens. So the most important thing is commitment to a shot.
Jan Sesh, while you're in a match and you miss a shot, what do you tell yourself to stay positive?
If I miss a shot, I don't dwell on it. That's one thing. I stay very present and don't dwell on anything. Stay present, and you know, you've got to let it go quickly, and know that when you get back there, you're going to do everything right to make things right. There's not one person in the world that doesn't miss a shot, right? So that's one thing you need to know. During a match, somebody's going to miss a shot unless they're just playing lights out, which does happen. Very rarely though. So you've always got to be prepared to get to the table. If it's you missing a shot, you let it go, and you just believe that better things are going to happen next time, and eventually you just play your way into it. So a good attitude is everything.
Ray Houston wants to know your favourite tip. Sorry, the tip on the cue.
Oh, at the moment, well, that's my favourite tip. I just want to say something that I'm not really big on it. I just like a medium tip. I can give you a couple that I like. I like a sniper. I like the Kamui soft. I mean, it's just, you know, all I'm looking for is a medium tip. I don't think they vary so much, you know, but then maybe that's just, I'm not too fussy. So at the moment, I've got Kamui soft on there. I have to say, I used, oh gosh, what was it? Mori for most of my career, long time ago, but then they weren't as consistent. But I mean, for years and years, I was using the Mori tip, but then they just became not as consistent. So, you know, I just try a few different things and see what I like, and they last me a long time. So I'm not always changing tips.
Hi,
Eric.
What table do you practice on?
I practice on. I have a Brunswick Gold Crown downstairs. I have a Chinese snooker table, but you know, most of our tournaments are played on diamonds in the US, so I like the diamonds too. And I think if you can play on diamonds, you know, they're slightly tighter pockets, so you know you have to learn how to play on them. Hi, Ali. Nice to see you. Hope you're doing well. Hi, Kim.
Shu Chi Ho wants to know what other sports do you like playing other than pool?
Gosh, when I was younger, not playing so much now, but when I was younger, I used to be very good at hockey, field hockey, netball, which is a game that's in England where you're passing the ball. It's like basketball, but without bouncing the ball. So hockey, netball, basketball, and I like tennis, but I haven't played a lot of it. And I've dabbled a little bit in golf, but again, haven't really played a lot of that because it's a game that you have to play a lot of to get really good at it. And I like to be good at it.
George Sheep, we've had one from him earlier, another one.
Go on, George.
What's the weight of your cue?
The weight of the cue right now is just over 19 ounces. I used 18 for years, but I'm liking a little bit of a heavier cue right now.
Brian Brown, do you do drills when not competing? If so, what is your favourite drill?
I've always done lots of straight in shots. When I played snooker, I'd do like 4 hours a day of just drills. I really didn't play people much. But at pool, I think it's good to do a little combination of both. I think drills are good because what they do is they allow you to think about what you're doing, to be conscious of what you're doing and be able to correct things. And then when you're playing somebody, you just want to be relaxed and probably pick one thing to think about when you're playing. I had the luxury of partnering up with Steve Davis years ago. We played World Mixed Doubles together. And I sat next to him and I would ask him questions like that, like, hey, Steve, what do you focus on when you practice? And he would tell me, and I said, well, what about in a match? He said, well, your brain can't take multiple things. So you just think about one thing. It could be just keeping your head still through the whole match, every shot. And that's it. Take one thought into a match and just think about that. But when you're playing and you're doing your drills, then it's conscious effort and you can tweak and work with things separately, isolate things and get them really good.
How many hours a day do you practice?
Not so much anymore, but I think if you want to be really good, you should do probably 4 to 6 hours. Some people do a lot more. What I did find in my life, though, is that I've kept a good balance in my life and longevity, and I think I had a very good snooker career and I've had a very good pool career and it's continuing. I just think it's because I haven't overdone it. So I never killed the passion, really. So I think it's, you've got to find your own balance there. There's not a right and wrong. A couple of hours of really good quality practice is better than 6 and 8 hours of banging balls around the table. It's about how present you are when you're practicing.
Randy Irving wants to know that if you're limited on time just before a tournament, what shot do you like to warm up with?
I think long straight in shots or short straight in shots, but long straight in shots are always good to warm up because that's just telling you that you're finding the line, and that's what you want for any shot. The whole thing is to deliver a cue in a straight line. It doesn't matter what the angle is. That's what you're trying to do.
Do you prefer to practice on your own or with a practice partner, or both?
I actually like a bit of both, but I prefer on my own because that's a little bit of thinking time for me about what to work on. But it's not as easy to do because I did that for years, so it's not as easy to practice on your own so much. So, in fact, it's actually quite nice to have a sparring partner even to do drills. Sometimes when I'm at tournaments with Kelly, or I go to a pool room with Kelly Fisher, and no matter where we are in the world, and we'll help each other. We'll do drills. She'll shoot it, then I'll shoot it, then she'll shoot it, and I'll shoot it. So I actually quite enjoy that. I see Ali's asking me, Ali McDaniels, how did you know when you're ready to go from playing pool for fun to making it a profession? I miss you too, by the way. For me, it was kind of natural. I think I went from playing in a league. And then I found out, it's kind of funny, I picked up a newspaper one day. I was about 14 years old. And then I opened the paper and I started reading, and I read about Women's World Snooker Championship. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, women play the game. Because I was a kid and there weren't really women playing in my local pub, Peacehaven Central Club. So I thought, oh, all right. So then I'm like, oh, I want to play, because I was competing at other sports, for the score and for the county. I did county trials at different sports. So then I asked, my dad asked Frank Sandell to find out, and we found out about the WLBSA, World Ladies Billiards and Snooker Association. I became a member of that, and I played in my first tournament. And I think I was the end of 14, maybe 15. So I went along to my first tournament, and I played a player in the first round, a seeded player, and I lost. And it was a straight knockout. I lost my first match, 3-2, on the last ball. I shook hands, I turned around, and I started crying. And then I got in the car and went home. I was in the car on the way home, and I said to my mum and dad, can you take me to the next tournament, please? So I think you know, I wanted to do better than that. And that's basically what happened. I got inspired, and I just kept wanting to play tournaments. And then gradually it just, you know, I got to quarter final, final, and then I won a tournament. But I went through all the emotions of beginning, and then it just felt natural for me to want to play it and to become a professional when I left school. Hi Gil, I see Gil there, somebody I taught from one of my schools.
Somebody asked, is there the next Alison Fisher coming up, and if so, who is it?
I'm sure there's. Well, it's nice of you to pick me, but I'm sure there's lots of players out there. Specifically in China, there are some great players, and they're being taught in schools. I went to a school in China, and there are 7 and 8-year-olds who have a pool room at the school, and they're playing on full-size tables. And it's a government-supported sport over there. It's very well respected, and that's one thing that we are lacking over here. Is the coaching of US juniors, and US juniors being able to get into pool rooms easily. So we need to, that's the next thing I think that needs to happen for the juniors, is we need to inspire them and to find places for them to play.
How do you get in the zone?
That's a really, really good question. I'm asked that a lot. And how to get into the zone. Ooh, wow. It doesn't happen easily. I have to say that. And to me, it's only happened a few times in my career. You have more chance of getting into a zone if you're highly focused and you have method, to me. I've had it a few times where it's almost like nothing else exists. You feel like you can do anything on the table, that nothing's going to go wrong. That's the zone. And it's a absolute focus, but it's a very relaxed focus. It's an amazing feeling. There's not a way you just get in it. You're trying to focus, and then suddenly you land in it. It's not something you plan or can just snap your fingers and you're in it. But what you do have to do is appreciate it when you're there, because it doesn't happen that often. So when you get those, they are magic moments, and they're fantastic, and they're the sorts of things that you do keep playing for.
Kathleen S. Mueller wants to know, if you are behind in a match, what positive self-talk do you say to yourself to keep a positive attitude if you're behind?
Well, firstly, I never give up. I never give up, as Winston Churchill said. Because you can cry about something if you lose afterwards, but in the moment, you have to be so in it. You know, you have to give it everything you've got. And I think that I'm probably one of the better players at playing from behind. I've beaten players from 8-0 on 8-1 down. Hi Trenton, good junior player. So you've just always got to be present, and it doesn't matter how far behind, because anything can happen at any time. The opponent can slack off, start missing. Then you start to win game by game by game, ball by ball. You just take it ball by ball, and then game by game, and all of a sudden the opponent gets under pressure. So, you know, the role becomes a little bit reversed. So you have to be prepared. Hi Darren, how you doing? Nice to see you. Glad you like my house.
A nice pad.
Nice pad.
Steve Lomax.
Hi Steve.
What are your thoughts on equipment changes over the years, such as slow cloth to fast cloth?
Yeah. We're playing on this tour a Simonis 860, which I love because obviously I played on it a lot. I've played in pool rooms on 760 before, and it's like an ice rink. So that's not my favourite, because what you need to do is, the good thing about me is I have quite a long cue action, so I can adjust to a slower table. And then when you go on to a really fast table, then you cut down the stroke. So as long as you know what you're doing with your stroke, it's easy to adjust to anything. But you don't want to be playing on a really slow table, and likewise, you don't want to play on a very fast table. You want that sort of good, consistent cloth that's reliable. When we play in China, there's all sorts of different brands of cloth, but the atmosphere is very different, very dry. You're not getting as much throw on the ball. So everything's very different. So it just takes a little bit of getting used to. Sometimes you run your hand on the cloth and it feels like fine grade sandpaper. It's a little bit different. So it's yeah, it's interesting.
Okay. What's the most favourite game, snooker or pool? And which one's the easiest?
Ooh, favourite game. That's interesting too, because I like 10 ball. I like to play 10 ball pool because there's not as much luck as in 9 ball, because at 10 ball you have to call things and there's no two-way shots. 9 ball, the break can be easy depending on the equipment and what rules we're playing by. And there is a luck factor. People can miss a ball, 2 or 3 diamonds, it goes in, it counts, which I really don't like at all. Snooker technique has to be perfect. Smaller pockets, smaller balls, 12 by 6 foot table. That's what I grew up on. So technically, I love playing snooker. I love watching it. However, what I liked about coming over and playing pool was the creativity of it. You can cheat the pocket, which in the beginning I thought, because I was always so used to hitting the heart of the pocket. So I think I wasn't really enjoying that to begin with, that people could hit a little way up the table and make a ball. So easier in some ways, but if you start to get an inch or two out of position at pool, it really can play its toll in a match. So, you know, yeah, it might be easier to pocket a ball, but you still got to keep focused on where you're putting the ball on the table. But again, I grew up with snooker. I love it, and it's great. You know, you need high technical ability, and focus, and yeah, I love them both for different reasons.
Aaron Purdy would like to know if you've got a vision for the youth of billiards, and are you going to be involved in that?
Well, I've actually been chosen to captain the Atlantic Cup Challenge team this year, so I will be the captain of the.
Use your iPhone to search the web for easier in some ways, but if you start to get an intro to our position.
Oh, that's my watch, I think. Excuse me. I have no idea what that's doing. I didn't know it did that. Sorry about that. Rude interruption there.
Is that Siri?
I don't know who that was. Some lady there. Anyway, where were we?
The youth of
the youth.
Yeah,
sorry.
The youth.
Right. To teach the Atlantic Cup Challenge team. So I'm actually coaching the US juniors this year, which I'm really looking forward to. I will be on the committee that helps choose that team, and a lot of it will be chosen by a few junior events coming up, BCA and BEF, Village Education Foundation tournaments. So looking forward to it. We'll see what happens, and hopefully we'll put together a really good US team. I've been very impressed with them the last few years. But eventually I would like to be involved in some academies and helping to grow the junior side of the sport. And it definitely needs it over here. And, you know, as I wind down a little bit on my competition, I'd like to be involved in that.
Jaden Dupree wants to know your what's the best tournament you've played in your opinion? And has there ever been a tournament where you could do no wrong?
Gosh, best tournament I've played in. Ooh, I think. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Kim. She brings my memory back because I'm getting to that age. It needs a jog now and again. Gosh, Amway Cup is one of my favourites to play in over the years. I've won it 5 times. Brag, brag. But my favourite because it's got exceptional coverage, live TV. It's a round robin format. Now it consists, I think, of 48 players, 6 groups of 8 from all over the world. And the fact that you get a chance to play every player in your group and that every game counts makes it a more fair competition. It's not just relying on the draw, luck of the draw and all that. So I love that. And then the top 3 players qualify in each group, top 2 go straight into the last 16. So it's based on your record within your group and so on and so forth. And it's the most exciting tournament, I think, on the world calendar. So that would be probably one of my favourites. And Taiwan, it's held in Taiwan, in Taipei, Taiwan. I love going there. I've got many friends over there over the years. Hi, if you're watching, I know it's morning for you. But the nice thing about pool and world pool, any pool that you play, whether it's in your city, regional, national, international, it becomes, you're becoming part of a family, basically. I've known these players for over 20 years. I've grown up with them, and we've all experienced different things in our lives. So it's really amazing, and I just love the whole tour and being a part of it.
Have you heard of Fargo ratings?
Hi, Diane. Nice
Fargo
to see you.
ratings. What do you think of them?
Not really. I don't pay attention to that. I don't. I've heard of it. I don't really know too much about it. So you're kind of asking the wrong person here.
Okay, Mike Lear wants to know, what is your number one way to fight fatigue while playing a longer event?
Plenty of rest. You need plenty of rest. I drink plenty of water. I try and sleep as much as I can in between games, just to relax the mind. Even if I'm not really sleeping, I'm just in a nice relaxed state. I don't go and socialise a lot because that's just energy to me. Not that I don't love people. I just like to keep inward when I play and when I compete. And eat the right things. Maybe you take bananas, take little things that you can. I sometimes take little small chocolate bars, Snickers or something, just to munch on in between. Energy bars, just things that you like, that you know sit well with you when you play and help you compete. But those would be the things: plenty of rest, some snacks, and light bites, and water. I drink a lot of water too.
Jesse Guerrero wants to know, do you use more wrist or more locked wrist?
I don't use much wrist. If I'm playing a power shot, as I come back, my hand will open up a little bit, and then I come through with more wrist. But I'm definitely not this wristy player. When you start playing with a wrist, you're going to lose control of the feel of the shot and the shot. So I'm not a wristy player. I tend to have them work together. But yeah, that was a good question.
Mm-hmm. And Javier Castilian Valenzuela wants
Thank
to
you.
know,
Thank you.
do you play one pocket?
No, I don't play one pocket. Sorry.
Okay, moving on swiftly. George Sheik, I think that's his third question.
Now, George, it's one question per person.
This
Just
is
kidding.
You'll like this one.
Go on,
is
then.
there an MBE in your future?
Can everyone here contact the Queen of England and ask about that? Because apparently I do believe that Vera Selby, who was a player pre-me many years ago in the WLBSA, did get an MBE. So I think it would be nice to find out about that. That's a member of the British Empire, and an OBE is Order of the British Empire. Maybe I'll have to have a word with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex.
I think you should. Do you love travelling to tournaments, or would you rather play in the US?
I love travelling, but it's becoming a little bit tiring the older you get, especially when you take those big Chinese trips. A lot of tournaments are played in China, and it's like a 24-hour trip from A to B. So that is actually getting more tiring. But yeah, I mean, I still love to travel. I love seeing the world, and that's been part of the beauty of the game to me, is meeting people from all over the world, having those experiences. I wouldn't change it for anything.
And can you just tell Aaron Purdy that it is me? I am here. He's asking, is that Kim Shaw? Aaron Purdy, this is Kim Shaw.
Aaron, that is Kim Shaw, really is Kim Shaw. You probably don't want to see her right now.
No. Okay. Any special clothes you wear at tournaments?
I like to wear fitted clothing at tournaments because I'm of that snooker background where you don't want the ball to move in, you don't want to be touching a ball. So I like to wear nice fitted pants and fitted clothing. Even though, depending on the tournaments, when you're playing world events, it's all ball fouls, and if clothing touches it, it's a foul. So sort of sporty, tighter tops, really, or nice blouses.
Okay, Jocelyn Villapando Audette.
We've got some great names tonight.
Yeah,
people.
It's a bit of a mouthful for me. Even if it doesn't happen often, how do you cope with a loss? Do you analyse it?
Cry for hours on end on my own in my room. What do you mean loss? I don't. What?
Well, I shouldn't have
Loss?
asked that question. That was ridiculous.
I don't. Can't associate with that. No, you're going to lose. It's inevitable. So I've had really. It's painful. Losing is painful. There's no doubt about that. But if it wasn't, what's the point in winning? I mean, you want all of the experiences. You want to feel, right? And this game makes you feel in every aspect, whether it's the highs of winning, the lows of losing. It's tearful. There've been times when I've been going through stuff in my life mid-match where I've taken a time out to leave and go and have a good cry and then come back to continue the match. So you can't lie about that. That's part of life, and I'll analyse it. I don't necessarily go back and watch matches because I remember the painful shots. I also remember good shots, but we always remember those ones that cost us. So yeah, it's you've got to learn from that. You know, that pain can take you to good places too.
Philip Alexander wants to know, what aiming system do you prefer or do you use, if any, like ghost ball or fractions or centre to edge?
Well, thank you for mentioning that. I'd probably use fractions. I grew up with learning a full ball hit, a half ball hit, a three-quarter ball hit, a quarter ball hit. So more of fractions of a ball. I imagine how much of the cue ball needs to cover how much of the object ball. I do not use a ghost ball because I can't possibly imagine that. So I'm just trying to visualise how much of this ball needs to contact how much of that ball.
Amy Kirkpatrick, do you still have your academy going, and can you talk a bit about it?
I will start that up again. I've stopped it for a little while, but I do teach. I love to teach individually, groups, academies in Charlotte, North Carolina. I also do travelling, so if anyone's interested, please contact me. But the academy, I usually do a dinner on a Friday night. On a Saturday, it's teaching from 10 till 5. Then we go out to dinner. And then the same again. Hi, Brittany. And then the same again the next day, 10 till 5. And then you go home. So it's all day. Day one is usually covering all of the fundamentals, meaning the mechanics. So, and then making sure everything's perfect there. And then the next day is everything else. Banking, kicking, bridge, everything, breaking, rack, reading, everything. So that's generally what I would do in an academy.
I have a wedding proposal from Billy Nelson. He wants to be Mr. Fisher, just to let you know. And that he loves
Thank you. I must check you out later.
Billy Nelson, stay on the line. When you win a tournament, do you give yourself days off afterwards to celebrate, or do you go straight back into practice?
No, believe me, I like to gloat for a day. Always have done. That's the reward. So I think you always have to have, like I said earlier, you have to have the balance. Shannon, how you doing? You have to have balance in life. And so definitely to take the day off, you need time. Even if it's like Monday to Friday you're practicing and you take the weekend off, you must have balance in life, in my opinion.
Are you scared of flying?
Not scared of flying at all, thankfully. I know players that are Kinshaw. Kinshaw
used to be.
But luckily, no, I don't have that phobia. I'm a big fatalist. I believe when it's my time to go, that's it. So hopefully I'll be here a long time.
The bridges, there's different bridges out there. There's the old Snooker bridge, and I think there's the London Bridge. Which is the bridge that you prefer?
Well, I like the London Bridge, I have to say, because I also like the cross rest from Snooker, but the London Bridge I like because it allows you to cue from the rail too. So that's a really good thing about it. It just slips on the end of your break cue. I'm not sure. Do you know what? I actually have my case here. I'm not sure. I might have one in my case.
Oh, okay.
Just so I can show you.
Is that a London Bridge?
And here's one I made earlier. Hold on a second. Have I got it or not?
A lot of people saying hi, by the way.
Oh, look, here's a London Bridge. Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Allison Fisher, here to answer your questions. We were just talking about the bridge, and I like this because this fits along the rail in many different ways, and you can also shoot at different heights. So that's the London Bridge. And this is my case, courtesy of Jack Justice.
Oh.
Many years ago he made me this, and I'm really proud of it because I do believe that Jack is retiring this year. So thank you, Jack, for that over the years.
Antonio Giara. Hello, Alison.
Hello.
What was the toughest game in your career and against who? And hello from Amarillo, Texas.
There's a song there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is a song.
Right, okay.
Peter Kay.
Yeah, Peter Kay. Look up Peter Kay. Sorry, what was that again?
Toughest opponent.
Toughest opponent over the years has probably been Karen, Guyon Kim, some of the Chinese players, Chen Ximing, Han Yu. There's lots of great players, lots of great opponents over the years. There's too many to mention. Helena Thornfeld. Those were WPBA players. Kelly.
Sorry, specifically a specific match. Can you know?
Oh, sorry,
people.
Me, yeah. Sorry, match. No, not really.
No. Okay.
Sorry about that. There's been lots of them.
A couple of people want you to say snooker again because they love the accent.
Snooker. It's snooker with an OO in the middle.
Okay, I'm looking
Hi, Laurie John. We've had a lot of tough battles over the years, Laurie John and me.
Dennis Beck, I have a problem with force follow. Any advice?
I like to, funnily enough, with force follow, I like to shorten my bridge up and push through the ball more. So it's all about the follow through, so to speak. And I find, and you should experiment with this, is to just move the bridge hand a bit closer, get really high on the ball and focus on pushing through the ball a little bit more than you usually do. And I think that will help you. You heard it here, folks.
Okay, I'm just sifting through the some more questions. Is there anything there? Any questions over there?
Oh, I see Katrina there. Thank you. Where does one go to learn more about your cue line? I can just see that still at my age. I don't need the glasses yet. You can go to AllisonFisher.com or AllisonFisherCues.com, and we will also put a link on Facebook, on my Facebook fan page. So thank you. And talking of which, I just want to show you the cue that I'm using right now, because I'm sure you're interested. This is a new line that I've come out with, and the reason that I've come out with this line is because it's a made-to-measure line and there's no upcharge for it. So you can have a cue made to any length you want, and there's no upcharge. The price is the price. But this is the current cue that I'm using. As you can see, it's got my new logo. I've put in brass rings on it. This one is a really nice one. This is a Coca-Cola and maple, and abalone inserts here, made by Joe P. Chow. We designed this line together, and I'm really, really happy with it. So please check it out and see what you think.
2 minutes. Philip Alexander, what rack do you like to use? Delta or Magic or Diamond racks?
Ooh.
Or any others?
Delta made a really good rack, that's for sure. Fits the balls perfectly, as long as they're perfect balls. But you have to remember, when you go into pool rooms, a lot of places have balls that have been used for many, many years, and they actually do shrink, and they don't fit the racks perfectly. So in that sense, I feel like, hi Sherry, I feel like the Magic rack is probably the fairest. It might not be the best rack in the sense of if a ball goes over it, there might be a slight movement, but I think that's what we're using in world play, and easy to set up. It's the same for each player. So I think that's the fairest way to go, so that nobody manipulates the rack basically, or a referee doesn't give you a bad rack. I've had that before in a tournament where I've been 5-5 with somebody on TV, and I won't mention a name, but the referee set the rack up and the 9 went straight in the pocket, and that's a bad rack. That means that the 2 balls behind the 9 are loose. So there's nothing worse than that feeling when you see it go in and you're just staring the person down who did that, which has sometimes been me too.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
Yeah, oh, please do. I'm enjoying this.
Lydia Blanton. She starts off by saying, I think you're fabulous.
Thank you.
And
I'll pay you later.
It's hard to find women's billiards on TV these days. Do you
Yeah.
know why?
Yes, the WPBA lost their ESPN contract, unfortunately, because we didn't find enough venues. We lost a few of the casinos who was sponsoring our events. And the idea now is to gradually build up the Women's Professional Billiard Association tour again. And that's happening. We've got a new board who are trying to make things better and more successful. So everything is being rebuilt and revamped, and so we're hoping that we'll have more events in the US. And we have one coming up at Emerald Billiards in Louisiana in June. I do believe it's June 22nd to June the 26th, and there'll be more information on WPBA.com or the Facebook page of WPBA for you to follow with more news. Thank you for that question.
Okay. Kathy Stanley, can you talk a bit more on the mental game and how important is it?
Well, luckily for me, I've always had a good mental game without having to work at it, especially when I was younger, because I did a lot of sport. So I think it was very natural for me. As I've got older, maybe not as easy when you're not playing as much as you once were. So I think you always got to fill yourself with positive thoughts, try and remain confident. And some of that confidence I talked about earlier comes from what you do at the table every time you go to the table. So don't waste your time banging balls around. Set up shots that are important to you and think about how you approach the shot, how your cueing is. Is it the same every time? Is there a change? Are you twisting your wrist? Are you lifting your head? You ask yourself all these questions. Mentally, once you start perfecting all those different aspects of the game, that's when you get better, and that's when your confidence grows. So you keep everything simple to begin with, start somewhere, and then gradually make it more difficult, and keep testing yourself. Then your mental game grows, which is great. And then you're going to get more confidence and get better results, and that your confidence grows. You know, I attract and surround myself with positive people too. I've got a very positive family, positive friendships, and that goes a long way in life. I'm very grateful for that. And then when you're in the heat of the moment, when you're playing, you might have things that you say to yourself or plan something you're going to do all through a particular match. So you might have a word, let's say you're struggling with your timing, you might have a count, or you might say a word that makes you just slow everything down or smooth it out. So, you know, there's many things you can do to help yourself.
Randy Bragdon wants to know, I don't know if you know Randy, but do you still plant many flowers in your garden?
No, I've got you can see I'm living in a townhome now, and I have a deck up the top here and a lower deck, and I took the old garden out of it, so it was a lot of work. So I've moved into a townhome, which I really enjoy. And not right now, I'm not focused on the flower planting, but I am surrounded by a lot of nature outside.
Ricky Ezel really wants to know who got you started playing. Is there one particular person?
Who got me started? Well, I think my dad in some ways, just because he had snooker turned on television and I liked the look of it. I sat next to him and I asked how it worked. So my dad would be one of the people for that. Yeah, I used to play everyone who came to the house on my little 1.5 foot long table. And yeah, so I think that would be my dad, and then the owner of the snooker club, which had one table in it, one full-size table, was John Copper at Peacehaven, at the Central Club in Peacehaven, Sussex in England. And thanks to him letting me play on that table as a junior, I would go in there and you know, he allowed me to play, and then I was encouraged by the members there. So I'm really thankful, because I was a kid playing, you know, in an adult's game there. And so that was where the start happened.
Russ Obakar wants to know, do you think Chinese 8-ball will be more popular in the United States? I'm assuming than 9-ball.
I don't think so. I think that it would be popular in Canada and other parts of the world because it's a sort of hybrid of snooker and pool. So I think maybe where snooker is played, it'll be very popular. So it could be in England, could be other parts of Europe. It's a sort of transitional game. I'm not sure it'd take off over here. I'd like to see it take off, but I'm not sure that it would.
Randy Southworth, how are you balancing life on the road with being a mum?
I can pick and choose really. I'm not sort of doing as much as I was once doing, and I think it's important for me to again have that balance and spend a lot of time with my son. And I want to see him grow up. I'm not going to be one of those away parents, so I think it's all working out really well right now. So that's and he's obviously a highly important, the most important part of my life.
Question from Edwidge Kavanagh. If you were not playing pool, what other career would you do?
Well, thank you that I found pool, because I'm not really sure. Because when I was younger, when I was at school, if I was going to lean with anything, it was being a PE teacher, physical education teacher, because I love sport. So I think I was always going to lean with teaching PE.
Okay.
And now I teach pool.
A lot of people just saying hi, and this is awesome. I can't wait for the next one.
Thank you. We will be doing this again, by the way. In fact, I'd probably like to, and I don't know if it'd be more than this, but I'd definitely like to do at least monthly, because I'm really enjoying it. I love to answer questions, and I think it's important to, be in touch with you. I think we'll take another question and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay, yeah. I don't know if you've answered this. What is your least favourite shot? That's from Dan DeGraff.
Can't think of a least favourite.
A lot of people saying that snooker should come to the US.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if it did, and maybe that transitional Chinese 8-ball would be a good thing to sort of segue into that. I don't know. It would be, I would like to see it. We'll see what happens. Hi Dee, how you doing?
Okay, last question then. James H. Bashur, I'm sure butchering these names.
James Boucher.
Okay. Are you ever going to have a pool school in paradise on the West Coast again? What a fun time.
Well, didn't we just? That was Paul Potier, Mike Massey, Gerda Hofstetter, and for 20 years, well, for a long time, it was actually many years, I don't know, maybe not 20, but a long time, it seemed like 20. We did Vancouver Pool School, and it was absolutely fantastic. Many people kept coming back because they enjoyed it so much. Rick Rogers being one of them, James came out, many people, Dustin, over the years. Thank you for tuning in. And then I've done them in Charlotte, and I've done them in Hawaii before. So always open to the old pool schools anywhere. So be in contact with me if anyone's interested in bringing me out to your area too. Let's wrap it up. I want to thank you all so much for joining me, because I don't want to bore you all. Please follow me on Instagram. I'm Allison Fisher. My Allison Fisher fan page on Facebook, where you are now. AllisonFisher.com. AllisonFisherCues.com, and my YouTube channel. Please follow that, because in the near future I will be posting lots of videos, and also on here. So really appreciate you tuning in, and thanks so much, and we'll do this again soon. All right, thank you. Thank you, Kimmy, by the way.